Welcome to MILF Ministry podcast, where we explore self-love, healing, and intimacy. My name is Ayodele Vassell. I'm an attorney, a creative, and a MILF. Merch is now available at milfministry.com. You can join our live conversations on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter by following at MILF Ministry on social media. Today's episode is called Joy Thief. On your personal journey to just finding your own happiness, there can be so many people that stand in your way. When I say stand in your way, I'm really speaking metaphorically. Because oftentimes, you are the number one person standing in your own way because you just simply haven't made a decision to be happy. I know that was true for myself. But we can also include other people. Like sometimes you may have a bitter ex, or you may have family and or friends that don't approve of some of the choices you made in your relationship and either choosing the partner that you left, or they may not agree with who you left, who you chose to leave. And to give you context in terms of like why I'm going straight to a breakup is because, once again, this podcast is MILF Ministry. We're dedicated to helping MILFs, just really this podcast is based on my personal journey to find happiness after divorce. And it's important that I take a moment to address the concept of joy and people stealing your joy, yourself included, because this is something that I struggled with. And like I said, we can talk about your ex. We can talk about family and friends that may disagree, but we also have to talk about ourselves, like our responsibility as MILFs to be the happiest version of ourselves that we can be. Because at the end of the day, happy MILF, happy honeypot, happy lover, boyfriend, husband, whatever you choose to move on to. You know what I'm saying? And this podcast is about reclaiming your joy, reclaiming your happiness, and, just making sure we enjoy life. So we'll start with outside people and then we'll work our way back to ourselves, since I think that's the most important issue. We'll finish with ourselves. When it comes to an ex, there are some main ways for me that an ex can disrupt your joy. And that's really how they interact with the children. Because once you get to a certain place where you understand that the relationship is over and you're no longer concerned with whether or not that person loves you and how they handle you, and you've set your boundaries, like, this is what respect looks like to me. This is the only way I'll interact with you. Like, these are the boundaries of which I'll interact with you. These are the types of conversations we can have. The conversations are limited to how are you going to see your child and how are you going to take care of your child financially, and the well-being, the emotional well-being of our child and the educational well-being of our child. So once you get those boundaries in place, to me, it's kind of hard to allow space for the person to disrespect you, the individual, like as a mom. What are you doing? Where are you going? Who are you dating? Why did we break up? Or it's your fault or it's not your fault. Because that's not a conversation that I'm open to having, because the relationship has ended and our focus is really and truly on the children. So with that being said, unfortunately, sometimes you can have a man that knows that the only way they're gonna hurt you is by being distant from the children that you have together. Sometimes they may withhold money or, dish out money sparingly. And it doesn't really matter how much money you as a woman make. Like, let's say you can pay all of your bills on your own and you can do everything you need to do for your child on your own. That doesn't negate your ex responsibility to take care of his child. I'm a big stickler for that. Like, I could be Oprah, making Oprah money. You still help me make this child, and you have a responsibility to provide for this child. And it's, like I said, it's financial, it's emotional, it's medical needs, it's all these things that you still need to contribute and pay attention to, because the child is a part of both of us. And the child needs to feel your energy. And it's not just a check, like the child needs to feel your energy. So to me, that's like a big way that you can disrupt me and you can hurt me, because anytime I see my child sad or see my child hurting from lack of attention or lack of energy or lack of anything from their father, that's going to hurt me, especially because there's nothing I can do about it. Like, I can love my child and provide for my child and do everything I need to do. But any child that is missing the love of a father or the energy of a father, there is nothing that a mother can do at all to fix that. You know, the only thing that we can do is try to make ourselves available within our boundaries. You know, we can call on the men in our lives, like our fathers, our brothers. You know, maybe you have a new partner in your life that's wonderful, that loves you, that loves your child. You can do all of those things, and none of those will negate the feeling of pain that your child will have if there's distance between your child and their father. Nothing you can do will fix that. And that's a really hard and bitter pill to swallow as a mother, when you love your child dearly and you try to do everything you can, everything in your power to, you know, create the best life for your child. And so to me, I look at that as a way someone, or a tool someone can use if they're angry with you, if they're hurt that you left them, or they may have left you and still be angry, still be conducting the same behavior. But it's just a tool that someone can use to get back at you, to disrupt your home, you know, because if your child is sad, it's going to affect you, because you're going to be trying to make sure that your child is okay. If your child is sad, it could create behavioral problems. It could create academic problems, you know, like your child is not performing well. So once again, to me, it's just a very selfish way that your ex can, or a selfish tool, that's a better way of phrasing it, that your ex can use to be disruptive and to steal your joy. And as women, we have to find a delicate way to navigate that energy. So you have to find a way to build your child up, love your child as best as possible, and still graciously not bash the partner, you know, not bash your ex to your child. Because at the end of the day, most of us are out here just trying to live our best lives. And that does not include, you know, speaking negatively about your child's father. At least for me, it doesn't include that. You may vent to your girlfriends, you may vent to other people, but to your actual child, that's not a place that you're going to go vent and say, you know, your daddy did this or your daddy didn't do that, or it's your dad's fault or whatever. Like, there's no point of that, in my opinion. So I had to have some very delicate conversations with a lot of women that I know and children that I know, just asking them, like, as a mother, what did it feel like to you to go through XYZ? And as a child, what did it feel like to you to go through XYZ? And once again, when I say XYZ, I'm asking mothers, what did it feel like to know that this man could contribute financially to your child and refused? And then asking the children, because some of them are adults now, what did it feel like to not spend time with your father? What did it feel like to really not get any kind of anything, like to not know, like, oh, my dad made sure that I had my school clothes this year. Or my dad made sure that I had my basketball uniform. My dad was at my games. My dad did this. My dad did that. What did that feel like to you? Obviously, we all know answers equated to sadness in the children, frustration in the children, anger in the children, and the same for the parents. And even bigger, in looking at the mothers in particular, my question was, what did you do to protect your own energy, to make sure that you weren't passing the frustration that you shared for your ex onto your child. And most women I know just decided to be positive and stay focused and find healthy examples of the males in their life that they could count on, and make sure that the children knew that they were loved in that way, and tried their best to live their own happy lives. Because at the end of the day, that's all you can do. But I wanted to address that because I really believe that that's almost, for lack of a better word, a passive aggressive way that your ex can exhibit behavior that can steal your joy. And so hopefully, if that's happening to you in your life, you can take a step back and look at it for what it is. Like, this person really is trying to steal your joy, acknowledge it, and find healthy ways to push past it. Whether it's you have a direct conversation with them, if you can have a conversation with your ex that will not push you further, right? Because some people may not be able to have a peaceful conversation. But obviously, if you can have a conversation directly with that person, do that. Some women that I know are just like, look, I went to the child support office and I let them figure out what needed to be figured out. And that was that. And some people are not comfortable with the court system and they want to handle stuff privately. But long story short, the goal is to have a direct conversation with your ex about stealing your joy, if you can do so in a safe manner, both physically and emotionally for yourself. And the second step was just making a decision that the child's relationship with their father is just that's their relationship. We don't have any control over it as mothers. And as painful as it is to see your child in pain, just realizing that's on the father. Right? So if they want to be bitter and steal joy, they're really just hurting your child. They're hurting you too, but they're really hurting their child. And that's something that they have to live with and deal with. And all you can do is love on your child and live the best life you can live. Going on to family and friends. That's a heavy one, especially for me, because marriage is so important in my family, and marriage for a lot of my friends is so important. And there are going to be people that don't understand why you decide to end your relationship. And the most important thing you can do for your own joy, right? Because we're talking about joy thief or people that steal joy. The most important thing that you can do is be crystal clear in the decisions that you're making. So as long as you know why you chose to end your relationship, and why, if you are moving on with a lover, with a boyfriend, with a husband, whatever you're choosing to move on with, as long as you're crystal clear on the reasons of why you're doing that, I think navigating your family and friendships is a little bit easier, because you will have people that will look at you and say, oh, all right, you're getting older. It's time to find a second husband. You'll have people that'll look at you and say, why get married again? Just find yourself a lover and keep it moving. Or the boyfriend, or choose a life partner. People will have lots of things to say about your next steps. I encourage you to take your time and be very clear about what you want. I had people in my life that judged me because right after divorce, if this is your first time listening, then you may not have the proper context. I was married for over 10 years and with my ex for almost 15, because we were together for about 5 years before we got married. And readjusting to dating and having sex or anything with a new person was terrifying. It was just, it was a very hard learning curve. And after I decided to separate from my ex and get back into the swing of things, there was a long period. There was about 9 months of just rearranging my life and finding a new place and getting a vehicle and just readjusting myself, getting my health organized, and my daughter, there were so many things that I had to get organized that it was basically like starting a whole new life. And then about a year after separation, my body began to tingle and like remind me that I was still human and that I still had body parts that hadn't been touched in over a year. And about 4 or 5 months after that, my body was like, listen, honey, it's been a minute and we don't really care about love. We don't really care about relationships, but sis, you need some attention from a man. You need to be touched, kissed, licked, fucked, all of that. You need it. And so I decided, like, I set out on this quest, to just have sex. It didn't really matter the circumstance. I had a few people in mind that I would be comfortable to start with, but it wasn't like I was like, let me find a boyfriend or let me, find a second husband. It was literally like, no, you need to have sex. It was very physical. And I remember feeling judgment from a few people because I didn't really care about who it was with. I didn't care about how often it was with. I didn't really care about too many things besides the actual act. I was like, let me just get in there and get into the swing of things, and then the rest of the stuff, I can figure it out. And as a woman, most women are not encouraged to kind of, I guess, soil, I don't know, what is it called? Soil your royal oats? Whatever that phrase is. Women are not encouraged to explore sexually outside of marriage. And I made the personal decision that I was going to explore myself and explore other people sexually outside of marriage before I thought about getting into any kind of relationship. Like, I was not playing with myself or other people. I was like, let me get into the swing of things, think about what I like, what I don't like, what I need. Let me just have some fun and, be free and figure myself out. And I gave myself permission to do that. But like I said, there were people around me that were kind of looking at the side eye like, don't you want a boyfriend? Or don't you want a this? Or don't you want a that? And I was just like, no, I want to get fucked. And people weren't really used to that response from someone of just being like, no. People would ask me like, are you dating? And I'd be like, no, I'm not dating. I'm fucking. And they'd be like, oh, okay. Okay. But yeah, I was very practical and pragmatic. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to figure out on my own terms. And it was important to me, if you've heard previous episodes, you've heard this before, but if you're brand new, long story short, it was important for me to make sure that whoever I chose as a partner, I chose because they were a good partner, not because I was horny and hadn't had sex in a few months, or in my case, almost 18 months. Because I know what the power of that feels like. And you could just be so excited to like, oh my gosh, it's been 2 years and I haven't been touched and someone finally likes me and this and that. And you want to make it something more than it is. I wanted to isolate the physical act of sex from a relationship, from love, from compatibility. And I'm really glad that I took the time to do that because I ran across different types of people where sometimes we were compatible spiritually, but we weren't compatible sexually, or we were compatible financially. Like, I loved going on dates and doing all these things with them, but we weren't compatible sexually. Sometimes we were compatible sexually, but we weren't compatible emotionally or like as friends or just all these different scenarios that I kind of ran across. And I was able to isolate like, oh, okay, these are the things that matter these are the connections that matter to me most. And these are the connections that help me find the most pleasure, so to speak. Like, I was very pleasure focused. And there are lots of things that you look for in a partner, especially if you're like me, that's someone that's already been married and already been there, done that. So you're like, if I want a partner, then these are some things that I want from that person and I want them to have. But I started to be, which I'll discuss in a different episode, in terms of like what makes you feel safe emotionally and what gives you like this sense of security with someone. I really started to hone in on that and realize that for me, and my life, the connection that I have with someone really supersedes everything. Because I'm blessed to be in a situation where I have good support from my family. I work, I take care of myself and my daughter. And so when I'm looking for someone, there are certain things that need to be checked off that have nothing to do with money, and they have nothing to do with how you look or how we'll look in pictures or to other people. They have everything to do with how we make each other feel. Even though I know that our connection alone cannot sustain a relationship. And what do I mean by that? Like, if you choose to live with someone and be a life partner with someone, you need to discuss things like financial compatibility, spiritual compatibility, because like, how will you resolve certain conflicts, and how will you handle certain health crisis and medical crisis and financial crisis? Are you with someone that's only committed to working in their profession? I.e., let's say they're an attorney and you guys have an opportunity somewhere where they're not licensed. Are they willing to drive Uber and do Postmates while they take the bar? Or would they rather be unemployed because they're a lawyer and they can't do anything else besides be a lawyer? Certain things like that matter in times of crisis. Obviously, because we're MILFs, how do they get along with your children? That matters. Like, that's everything. And get along with your children is a very loose phrase, but obviously there has to be like a foundation of love, a foundation of respect for the bond between your child and their birth parent, and space, right? Respectful space for your child and your new partner to create their own bond. And it has to be a man that's open to that concept and open to love in a different way. And I do believe that there are men out there that are open to that. But I say all that to say, you start to realize what really matters. Just bringing the conversation back. You start to realize what really matters to you. And I realize that more than anything else, the type of connection that I have with someone is everything. That's what brings me joy. That's what brings me peace. That's what I'm choosing to focus on. And I have to focus on that outside of what anyone else thinks. So last but not least, let's get to ourselves. The biggest joy thief in my life has been myself. Hopefully this is not true for you listeners, but for me, it has definitely been myself. I can be very hard on myself. I can be very judgmental of myself. And when I think about the things that I went through in my marriage, and I think about my decision to leave my marriage, I spent a lot of time beating myself up. I mean, really beating myself up. Like, why would you choose this person as a partner? Why did you stay married? Why did you decide to have a child with this person? And when I think about some of the things that affect my daughter, I also think about, why would I choose this for my daughter? And I remember even when I fought with myself and said, you deserve to be happy, you deserve peace, and was comfortable with the decision of leaving, I still realized that I was my own biggest joy thief, because there was a part of me that felt like I didn't deserve to be happy because of the quote unquote destruction I caused by tearing my family apart. So when I acknowledge that I have been the number one person in my own way, stealing my own joy, it allows me to take a step back and say, okay, if you step outside of yourself, right, and stop beating yourself up for all the choices you've made and look at your actual life. Okay, why did you choose this person as a husband? What version of this person did you see? What was presented to you? How did this person present themselves as a potential mate and potential father? Because in life, remember, you can only go off of the information you have. No one really knows what's going to happen. And what do I mean by that? Let's go back to the conversation when we talked about financial compatibility. And I'm a lawyer by trade, so that I like to use lawyer as an example. So what if your partner is an attorney and decides that they will only do legal work. Like they won't paint a house, they won't cut grass, they won't valet cars, they won't do Uber Eats, they won't do anything else outside of the law, but you all move to a new state and they have to take the bar and they have to do certain things before they can start to make money. And they don't care about that. They're financially crippling your family. Now, this is the what if. So let's backtrack. When you meet a partner and you have conversations about what they do, oh, I'm an attorney. Oh, that's nice. I'm a this, like whatever you do. Let's say you're a dancer or you're a teacher or whatever. And you guys talk about certain scenarios and you see that this person is paying their own bills and can even help you with your bills as a teacher. And you're like, okay, wow, this person is financially responsible because they're used to managing their own household. This person even has excess money because they can help you pay your bills. And you have conversations with this person and they're like, yes, I'll do anything to take care of my family. I can't sit around and watch my family suffer or this or that. And then 10 years later, you actually are suffering because the person does the opposite of what they said they would do, which is do anything for their family. And you, the teacher, are sitting back like, wow, I was willing to do Uber Eats. I actually did do Uber Eats and Postmates for our family. I actually was going to clean houses, or I did clean houses for our family because I needed to get my certification in the new state that we moved to. And I already knew that that was going to happen because I knew we were moving to a new state. And you also, husband/lawyer, you knew that you were going to have to get recertified because we were moving to a new state. So why all of a sudden now are you acting like you can't do anything? How is this relevant to the concept of someone stealing your joy? It's relevant because the point is, in life, the only thing you can do is try to make the best decision you can with the information that you have. And I remember feeling like after I decided to leave my ex, I remember this heaviness, this disgust with myself of like, how could you choose this partner? And how could you make these decisions? And I don't trust you, meaning conversation with myself. I don't trust myself to ever pick a partner again because look at what you did with your first marriage. And like I said, this is me stealing my own joy. This is me beating myself up. This is me being my toughest critic. It took a lot of help from family and friends to say, the person that you ended up with 10 years later is not necessarily the person that you were presented with, in the beginning. And this is not to say anything negative about my ex. This is just the straight fact. You can only make a decision based off the information that you have in front of you. And you can only hope that people will do what they say they are going to do, right? Show up in times of need and just provide the support that you need. Basic things that you expect a husband or a wife to do in times of need. But that's not always going to be the case. And that's why people get divorced. And that's why people break up. And when that happens, right, because we're talking about the context of relationships and joy. When that scenario happens, I'm encouraging you to give yourself a break. Because you have to look at all the evidence that you had and look at all the information that you had, and you have to make the best decision for you. And some people may say, oh, well, why would you marry someone that's a this? Or why would you marry someone that's a that? Or why would you deal with this or that? So many decisions that people make are based on family cycles of what you saw your grandparents do, what you saw your parents do, what you see society around you doing. So for me, my grandparents were married, my parents were married, and in Nashville, Tennessee, where we moved to after I was born in Jamaica, people were still getting married out of high school in the 80s. When I was born in the 80s, that was normal. And even when I got to high school in the 90s, people were still talking like they wanted to get married after high school, if not right after college. That's just what people did. And so many things changed in the world. The economy changed. I think women changed overall just in terms of independence. And it, that started from the 60s and slowly 70s, 80s, 90s trickled down. But I think by the time I decided to get married, I was basically torn between two worlds, right? Torn between two worlds. I was torn between the new world of women making their own decisions and not having kids and traveling the world and doing all these things that I see like my younger sister doing. She's not even 30 yet. And the old world of, well, no, you go to school, you get married, you have kids, you buy a house, you work, that's what people do. Not blaming anyone, because that was my life. Those were my choices. But when it comes to seeking joy, like I said, you just have to take a step back and say, okay, these are the choices that I made. This is the information that I have. And now it's time to move on. It's not time to beat yourself up. It's not time to look down on yourself. It's time to just move forward in joy and give yourself permission to be happy. And part of that is, if you did make some poor choices, forgive yourself for those poor choices and love your children for the blessings that they are and keep it moving. And as we discuss in other episodes, you know that life goes on. You've already left the father of your children, or child in my case, and you know that life goes on. You know that there's more joy out there. You know that there's more love out there. You know that there are more orgasms out there. You know that there are more friendships out there. Like, you just know that there's more. And because you have that knowledge, you can handle people that attempt to steal your joy. But you can see what they're doing. You can see them coming from a mile away, and you can pivot so that you can live the best life for yourself and the best life for your children. Thanks for listening to this episode of MILF Ministry Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and then share it. Merch is available at milfministry.com. You can join our live conversations about self-love, healing, and intimacy by following at MILF Ministry on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. My name is Ayodele Vassell. I'm an attorney, a creative, and a MILF. And I pray you always have honey for your spirits and honey for your lips.